Things aren't good, man.
Oh, God. Man, that gets me every single time. Hey guys and gals, welcome back to your favorite podcast, That Would Be Rad, the podcast that majors in 80s and 90s nostalgia, comic culture, all things paranormal, and minors in retro video games, tabletop RPGs, pre-internet mysteries, and raising our kids to be half as cool as we were back in the 80s. I'm your host, Tyler Bentz, and this is your other host,
Woody Brown.
Hey pal.
How's it going, man?
I felt really good about the breath control with that one.
You did good.
I was halfway through and I realized, man, today's going to be a good show.
It's going to be a good one. Hey, look, before we get into the topic, I just thought of this, man. This past week, Val Kilmer passed away, dude.
I know.
It sucks, man. Mad Mardigan himself, Doc Holliday, the Iceman.
Which, by the way, I didn't realize this, but I just learned hearing of Val Kilmer's death that, you know the scene in Maverick where he goes back and, talks to him and he's sick and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know that all of that was AI?
You mean like him being
like all of Val Kilmer apparently in that scene couldn't even talk.
Oh anymore. Yeah. I heard that the voice. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I had no idea. Such a great job.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, that makes me so sad in that movie too, because in real life it's pretty close to that. So
I haven't seen the documentary, but. What happened to him? I don't even know.
Cancer, man. Throat cancer, I believe.
Throat cancer.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I didn't want to bring the mood down, but I think, we had to say, see you in the next one, Val. Because, dude, I mean, he's part of so many movies that I was obsessed with growing up. Of course, Top Gun. But, I mean, Top Secret.
The Saint.
The Saint, okay.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I think, go back and watch it again. Doesn't hold up as well, but it's still good.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's just kind of cheesy, but I still love it nonetheless. Yeah. Real Genius.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was just the coolest dude ever, man.
It's definitely in my top 5 of all time. It is by far the greatest Western of all time.
Oh, gosh.
Him being Doc Holliday. Tombstone.
Yeah. Yes,
God.
Dude.
Nothing
so good.
Maybe no cooler character in a movie.
That's the most he looks and acts and even talks just like my grandpa, my dad's dad, in Tombstone. You want to know what my grandfather was like? Go watch Tombstone. When he's just awesome. Say when. That's my grandpa, dude. Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Last week we kicked off, I mean, in my opinion, dude, one of the kind of wildest deep dives that we've done, or at least I would say different than any deep dive that we've done previously, because we were exploring real life paranormal encounters that were reported by police officers. And just to kind of reiterate why that's any sort of significant, it's these are the people that, and we talked about this a little bit last week, of course, there's a bad apple in every bunch or whatever. We're going to push that to the side. We get it. Okay. But for the most part, these are the folks that we looked up to since we were kids, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you go into any kindergarten classroom, you say, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? They're like, police officer, fireman, astronaut, or,
Not anymore. Now
rock star.
Nope, not anymore. Now it's influencer.
Well, not in my house. Okay.
YouTuber.
Yeah, YouTuber. And anyways, we went through all these kind of weird paranormal encounters, some potential alien encounters, some Bigfoot stuff. And honestly, the response from everybody was awesome. And here's the thing. I think I mentioned this in the episode. We barely just scratched the surface last week. And so we were thinking, okay, look, we're about to go on spring break.
Yeah.
I've got all of these amazing stories that I don't really want to wait to tell, Mm-hmm. So I think, without further ado, let's dive right into it.
Let's get into it.
We're going to start off this episode going back to the spring of 1970. Now, springtime here, and we all hate pollen. Didn't said it weird. It sounded like I was going through puberty because of the pollen here. I'm telling you, my voice is kind of shaky today, so I apologize in advance. But we're going to Marrero, Louisiana. Could be mispronouncing that, and my apologies to all the lovely folks out there. But it's a small town nestled in the Jefferson Parish, just outside of New Orleans. And this one kind of starts off like something straight out of a classic horror movie. It's around 9 p.m., and 2 police officers are dispatched to a home after a terrified woman calls in a report of a prowler. Someone or something is lurking around her property. And this woman is genuinely scared, of course. She's convinced that someone's trying to get in or sneak around her place. So the officers arrive, they ask a few questions, jotting down some notes on their notepads, trying to try to calm her down. And then they do what they're trained to do. A perimeter sweep. Now, just to be extra cautious, they call in the canine unit. Here's where things get weird and real fast. The moment the canine officer arrives and lets the dog out, the dog begins to go absolutely nuts. Not aggressive, not barking and trying to attack anything, but instead the dog is clearly terrified. It's whining, it's agitated, trying to pull away from the officer, like something has it spooked down to the core. Now, if you've ever worked with trained dogs or, even seen police dogs, there's a reason why they typically say, you're not supposed to touch a trained dog. They might not, unless you're given permission and all that. But they're not easily scared. They spend a long time training these dogs to be, brave, not aggressive, but, stand their ground and help the officers. They're one of the police force. You know what I mean?
They're also like German Shepherds.
Typically German Shepherds, yeah.
Yeah, they're like bred to be like kind of badass.
So this is kind of a serious red flag here that something's not right. So now the officers are basically on full alert. They draw their weapons and begin circling the property. They round the edge of the house, and that's when they see it. Something huge is huddled against the side of the building. At first, maybe they think it's a person that's crouching, trying to hide, until it starts to move. And when it does, they realize immediately, man, that this is no human. It's massive, at least 8 feet tall, thick, heavy, covered in dark brown hair. Don't say it. I'm just kidding.
Woody.
It turns, stands upright, and takes these long, deliberate strides out toward the street. Now, when it steps under the streetlight, that's when they actually get their clearest look. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a Bigfoot. Giant, hairy, no clothing.
I thought you were going to say it was Woody, but then you said like 8 feet.
8 feet, yeah.
Instead of 4'11".
Oh, God. Dude, imagine if I was... That's hilarious. Okay. So it's giant, hairy, no clothing, no gear. Just this wild, towering creature walking calmly under the street lamp like it owns the place.
Dude, I mean... I know that like Bigfoot is like just in the zeitgeist, and we he's typically not like menacing in any way.
Sure.
But just imagine, especially in the context of like being in like a residential like neighborhood, you hear some noise, you're a cop, you show up, you shine your flashlight, and there's this massive, it reminds me of the Florida one, like the skunk ape photos that the old lady took.
Yep. And this is kind of like that same kind of area. Marshy, wooded, that same kind of environment, I should say, not area. like you said, dude, imagine standing there, you're armed, it's in the dark, you're watching this huge hulking beast, basically. Well, first, I initially think of, this not shaky. Let's give them a little credit here. They're in the back of the house. It's darker, I imagine. And I'm just kind of imagining this as a scene in a movie, almost like what happens in the Blair Witch Project, or, other movies utilize this moment where all of a sudden the light hits something. And at first, your eyes don't really recognize that there's anything different. You're just like, oh, it's just, a house. And then there's a slight movement and you realize this entire brief half a second that you thought nothing was there,
right? There's
actually something there. And that sort of like, that is just terrifying. So this thing gets up, it starts walking, it's under the street lamp. And it's, just without even being bothered, really. So years later, one of the officers that's, of course, since retired, spoke with a BFRO investigator, Bigfoot Research Organization, and they confirmed that the incident had been officially reported in their internal record system, but they didn't call it Bigfoot. In their report, they just said, very tall, dark in color, with no specific description of any clothing. Again, because it wasn't wearing any, and because, as the officer later explained, back then in 1970, you just didn't say, hey, I saw Bigfoot in an official report, Even though they did apparently tell their superiors verbally what they'd seen, and then the story was kind of buried.
I mean, you would, in this, what year in this, was it like later or early?
Literally 1970.
Oh, 1970. Because I think like Beast of Bray Road and like the Boggy Creek movie, like, so Bigfoot would have been like in the zeitgeist, but I wonder if that late, if they were still using like Wild Man and stuff.
Yeah.
Or if it was Bigfoot.
Well, the heartbreaking part was the officer's partner, the only other person that was there that night, passed away pretty young, at 37 actually. And the surviving officer said that they never got the chance to talk about that night again. But he said that he remembered every detail, and he also admitted that it was not the only unexplainable incident they dealt with, not by a long shot. So it kind of, makes you wonder how many stories, and we kind of talked about this, or at least alluded to it last week, how many stories like this are sort of locked up out there in old police reports or never made it to the official paper? You know what I mean? Paperwork of the police report.
Yep, totally agree.
You know what I mean? Filed under, unusual suspect or prowler. You know what I mean?
Well, not even that, but I mean, like I mentioned on the last episode, it's like, it was never a great idea to report into that, because you're kind of putting years of training and, just to become a cop, you're putting all that on the line by like, putting something out there like that, because then it's like, oh, you're nuts. This guy's nuts. Take him off the street,
Right. Yeah. You're putting your profession on the line. And then, especially back then, I'm just imagining 1970 police officer probably isn't the wealthiest guy. And so he wouldn't be able to afford to move to another parish in Louisiana. And if he did, you better believe that other police precinct or whatever.
Yep.
They're going to hear about all that. And so then he's going to be known as, there's that crazy loon. Who, hey man, what you doing tonight? You going Bigfoot hunting?
Yeah. He just becomes like the butt of the joke. And yeah.
Or the foot of the joke.
There it is. Yeah. It's just like, my question is like, I wonder, like, I would love to know the percent. I mean, there's no way of ever knowing, but like the percentage of these things that just are never reported. Yeah. Because, like the amount of reports are so few. So imagine like just the stuff that they're like, nope, they're going to call me crazy. I'm just going to keep it to myself.
Yeah. And I think in some ways the internet has given the opportunity to people to sort of remain anonymous and tell their story. The downside, of course, is there's people that just make stuff up, Yep. But I think, if we're looking at, I guess, areas where people can feel free to share their story, hey, our show's one of them. And you can remain anonymous, just as a reminder, if you've ever experienced anything like this or anything at all that is just weird, strange, curious, we would love to share that story.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like the concept of like therapy or counseling,
Yeah.
but you do have a story that you just, for your mental state, you got to get it off your chest, head on over to thatwouldberadpodcast.com.
Yep. Well, I mean, in all seriousness, I think not only is it helpful to kind of talk about those things, but also, I mean, I think what one common thread with a lot of these folks, and then some people that I know have sent in their stories already, one of the things they say quite often is, you know, I just wonder also, has anybody else, and oftentimes that's how the story ends. It's like, has anybody else experienced anything like that?
Yeah.
You know, out there, because you don't want to, you kind of want to not really be alone in that experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Has that ever happened to you? Okay. This next one is from not too long ago, really. It's Liberty County, Texas, 2002. So there's this off-duty police officer. And folks, I want you to think about this. Each of us, everyone, myself included, Tyler, you know, my wife, everybody, we get into these like daily routines, weekly routines that sometimes, honestly, you could basically mentally shut off and just like be on autopilot, especially like, you know, the drive home from work or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this sort of encounter started off this way for this off-duty police officer, but then turned into something that he would never forget. So again, Liberty County, Texas. Nice. The officer is cruising down this rural highway, and there's this lonely stretch of road lined with trees and shadows, and it's actually, I think the road is FM 1008, okay, to be exact. There's an 18-wheeler up ahead of him on the road, and they're both moving at a pretty decent clip, around 55 miles an hour, which is kind of interesting on a Texas highway. I don't know how many of you folks have ever driven through Texas, but we'll just say this. In Georgia, you know, you've got mountains, hills, a lot of curvature to the road. In Texas, I feel like everything's just straight, you know?
Yeah.
And the speed limits are just wild. It's like you're driving through a neighborhood and the speed limit's 80. And you're like, that can't be right. But it is. Okay. So he's driving. Everything seems normal until the officer catches something that's just a flicker of movement out of the corner of his eye off to the east side of the road. And then a massive creature comes tearing out of the tree line, running upright straight across the road. It bolts right in front of the big rig, forcing the truck to brake and swerve violently. Now, miraculously, this creature makes it across the road without being hit and vanishes into the woods on the west side. Now, the officer watching all of this, again, a trained cop, is just stunned.
Yeah.
He immediately notices that this thing, of course, is enormous. He says as tall as the cab of the 18-wheeler. So again, around 8 feet, easy.
Yeah.
It was bulky, just covered in hair and moving like nothing he's ever seen. He later estimated it was running at around 35 miles per hour with long, fluid strides. And this wasn't a person in a costume. This thing was booking it like an animal, a massive, intelligent one. The officer said that he wouldn't have believed it if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes. Now, again, if this is like, if I'm a police officer, you know, I know last week I said, like, for the most part, if I'm just driving around with my friends or my family's in the car, I'm not getting out, I'm not doing anything. If I'm a police officer, though, of course, right? I'm going to get out of the car and see what the heck's going on. See if I can see any clues, footsteps. Is it just a kid in a costume? You know what I mean? I mean, something. So this officer didn't stop, though. And he said afterward that he was genuinely intimidated. And it's interesting because even though he was off duty, I feel like if he saw that 18-wheeler swerve, and I'm just assuming that after that swerving, that truck just kept on going. Because I can't imagine this guy just being like, I'm just going to leave that trucker. He's fine. You know what I mean?
Be sure and tell him Large Marge sent ya.
But again, the officer felt intimidated, even though he had his 45 semi-auto handgun on him. he just couldn't believe how shaken he was.
Yeah.
Now, there was an investigator named Daryl Collier, and he's with the North American Wood Ape Conservancy, and he followed up with him, and the officer added more details. The creature appeared to be covered in grayish hair. Again, its height matched the cab of the big rig. Its speed seemed unnatural, and he said it was gone in just a few short seconds. And perhaps most chillingly, he said that he wished he had flagged the truck driver down, but at the time he just couldn't process what had happened. Here's something interesting that kind of adds some weight to this story. And the officer said that he had heard other stories from other police and fire service members in the area who had seen the same kind of creature. He wasn't just some guy seeing things here. You know, he's not alone. There's multiple people who have experienced the same strange something on those dark Texas roads. And I love this line from his report. It says, "If I had not seen it firsthand, I would not have believed it myself." And that's something that, to me, I don't think could ring more true with this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Because as fun as it is for me to read these stories and to bring them to the show and talk about them and stuff, there's, you know, it's hard for me to, I don't know how to explain it. Seeing something like that, I would be in the same boat. I'd be like, look, I know it sounds crazy. I know it's easy to just kind of be like, making it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But man, it would just be so hard to wrap your mind around something like that.
Yeah. One little tidbit is that you mentioned that I think is interesting is like the different sort of color varieties.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, from like around the, like, you know, the Yeti is white, you know, I think the Arkansas, it's more sort of grayish. Like, it's just like the different varieties of these things, which is interesting.
It's super cool because then it does a couple of things. One, it's difficult to either these things have the capability of matching their environment for, you know, camouflaging reasons, or there's just different species that, due to, you know, evolutionary adaptation, have evolved into having that color hair based on their geographical location. You know, sort of, for example, a polar bear has white fur.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
it's sort of like equipping it for its environment.
And then, so if it's equipped that way, then, because, you know, there's all these different theories of what Bigfoot is. We talk about it sometimes. Some people think maybe it's a creature from another dimension. Maybe maybe that's a alien that's flying around and finds out, and that's, you know, just what they look like. If you look at it through that lens, it's like, well, then why would they have different color for the area? So it's interesting. Another thing this reminded me of was those dark, long roads, man. Do you remember when we were leaving South by Southwest?
Yep.
And we're driving through this area, and I know I've mentioned it too.
I think it was like Mississippi.
No. It was before we did that. So we're just outside of Tyler, Texas, actually, getting closer to the border of Texas and Louisiana. And dude, it was kind of like one of those next gas stop 50 miles kind of stretches. Yeah. And it looked like, I remember it was probably 2:00 in the morning by the time I got there. And I looked over at you in the front, you know, I'm driving. Thomas and Boo Boo were just sleeping. And it was just like, we were like scared. We were spooking ourselves because we're like, dude, this looks like something straight out of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you're thinking, because there's these little, like, just barely held together shacks that you're passing, and you just got to know, man, somebody in there is just not a good guy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's an unfair assumption, but it was freaky.
Yeah, for sure. It has that, like, I mean, you're totally on with, like, the Texas Chainsaw. It's like that sort of, I don't know, there's something about, like, the South and this sort of, you know, endless rural road. It's just like anything can happen. Like if you're, it almost kind of takes you back to the old days, like where, you know, if you're trekking across the land in your wagon with all your like possessions, and like it was like you were legitimately worried that you could be like ambushed, and and nobody would ever know. They would take everything, kill you, throw you off into, some nearby creek or something. Same kind of thing. Same kind of vibe.
And I mean, and I don't know where that comes from initially. Is it because we've watched movies like the old school from the 70s, like The Tourist Trap and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and all these movies where they're kind of based loosely on true events, and it makes it that much scarier. And it's like, it's that sort of environment where it's such a small community.
Yeah.
That the second that you pull into the gas station, everyone knows you're not from there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, that's even how Texas Chainsaw, that's how the Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of starts, know? They go into the gas station, and it's just like a common trope now. Mm-hmm. And so you have that sort of vibe. Now put Bigfoot in there, and it's like, oh, man, it's freaky.
Yeah. Which, I mean, this is something that you and I, like, can vouch for, is, like, being in a touring band for years, popping up, 2 a.m, wearing like skinny jeans and like long hair and, tattoos and stuff. It's like you get a lot of weird looks, and it's like, it could be a pretty dangerous place.
Oh, yeah. And like, exactly. You already stand out anywhere, and now you're standing out in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, what are these guys up to?
Exactly. Yeah.
But we were always friendly to everybody, except for that guy that just came up to us and was showing us magic tricks. Oh, you remember that guy?
Oh, yeah.
Man, I was like, I'm going to spray him with the gasoline in 5 seconds, man. Okay, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to dive into some more kind of just crazy stories, man. I mean, they just kind of end up getting crazier and crazier, but it's going to be fun.
I don't know. There's something about like the sort of police aspect. That
it makes me just want to watch scary movies too, man. It's like I'm getting in the mood again.
Yeah.
It's like after October, I was like, hey, man, I just need to watch some. Let me just watch Bill and Ted's again or something. Good Lord.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
It's tourney time, and with FanDuel's Dog of the Day, you can get a daily profit boost during the College Conference Championships to bet on any underdog. So get ready to celebrate some upsets.
No one saw that coming, except for me, baby.
21 plus in present in select states. Opt-in required. Minimum plus 100 odds required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists, like Kunle, put people at the heart of everything they create.
In the average household, there are dozens of connected devices. Here in the Comcast family, we're building an integrated in-home Wi-Fi solution for millions of families like my own. It brings people together in meaningful ways.
Kunle and his team are building a Wi-Fi experience that connects 1 billion devices every year. Learn more about how Comcast is redefining the future of connectivity at comcastcorporation.com/Wi-Fi.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. The Department of Defense is working with Google to help secure America's digital defense systems, from establishing cloud-based zero-trust solutions to deploying the latest AI technology. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation.
Wow, this house is cute. But can I really get in the game in this economy? I do have savings, and I am responsible-ish. I should bury it. I'm being wild. But what if I'm not being wild, though? Could I actually score a...
Kick off your home buying journey with Zillow's new BuyAbility tool. It makes it easy to find out what you can afford, so you can get off the bench and onto the playing field with confidence. Check your BuyAbility, only on Zillow.
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. And with a welcome offer of 150,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership, your business can soar to new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
Campfire season's back, and that means s'mores. But when you're at home treating yourself, take them over ice with Dunkin' S'mores Cold Brew Concentrate. And suddenly you're always treating yourself. The home with Dunkin' is where you want to be. Click or tap the banner to shop now.
It's a pretty cool place if you're a Martian.
Or a vampire. You think you really know what's happening around here, don't you? We're fighters for truth, justice, and the American way.
Hey, this is Woody.
And this is Tyler. And you're listening to That Would Be Rad.
And now, back to our show. Okay, man. Well, this actually happens, this next story, in 2003. And I'm kind of digging these sort of... It's hard for me to think of 2003 as more than 20 years ago. Kind of makes me sick to my stomach, to be honest.
Yeah, same.
It's still, but because it just doesn't seem that long ago. But I'm kind of like in these more modern stories.
Yeah. I mean, even the 90s, though, to me, doesn't... When I hear like, oh, yeah, that came out in 95, it's like,
yeah,
oh, that was just like a few years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Getting old.
It's weird.
You're really getting old, but I'm getting old.
Dude. You know, we get new listeners all the time, and they're going to believe you that I'm some 4'5", 55-year-old.
With calf implants.
With calf implants and ears pinned to my head. Okay.
Oh, the pinned ear. Now,
where did you even get that, by the way?
So this is the thing.
Hold on.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Let's dive into these stories. You can talk about that over on the Patreon, because I don't want to hear it.
I just want to say, for the record, for our new listeners and old listeners, if
I can already tell you're going to make this up, dude.
I'm not making anything. I don't make things up for the show.
Okay.
But I will say, of all the things, the calf implants, like, it's all fun and games. We're all having a good time. But Woody does have pinned ears.
No, dude, I don't even know what that is, to be honest with you.
Bet
I don't even know what that is.
On this.
No, you would not. Stop, dude.
I will not relent.
I'm cutting it out, so it doesn't even matter what you say, but I don't know I don't know what a pinned ear is. Okay.
Liar.
It's October 2003. And now we're going to head up to Ontario, Canada, near this tiny town called Searchmont. It's quiet, remote, the kind of place you would go if you wanted solitude, clean air, and maybe to put a moose in the freezer for the winter. So our witness this time is an off-duty Toronto police officer. Solid guy, trained, rational. He's actually out moose hunting with his brother-in-law. Nothing unusual. Now, real quick note here. If a bull moose ran up on me while I was camping or something, I'd be pretty terrified myself, you know.
Yeah.
So they're set up near this gully, and they'd already placed some bait and done the usual sort of moose calls to lure one in, and they actually got a hit. This large bull moose shows up. Instead of responding to the call or cautiously approaching, though, the moose suddenly gets spooked, like terrified, and bolts off into the forest, which not really normal behavior for a bull moose. And it wasn't that these guys did something to spook it. Something else had clearly freaked it out. Of course, the officer at this point is intrigued, a little frustrated maybe, but mostly confused. So he calls in his brother-in-law, and they decide to try again. They spray some moose in heat urine to lure it back, and then wait. Hours go by. It starts to rain. It's really kind of coming down. Wind's kind of blowing through the trees. And then, a little after 1:30 p.m., something starts to change. The officer starts to hear these heavy thumps behind him. Like something big moving around, but every time he turns, there's nothing there. Just stillness and rain. But the thumps, they keep coming. louder and heavier. Now, around 5:25 p.m., he decides to take a break, stretch his legs, gets off the ATV, and lights up a cigarette. His gun is resting on the front bag of the ATV, which is within reach, just in case. So he's standing there looking out toward the gully, and that's when he hears it. But this time, footsteps, not heavy thumps. They're close. They're slow. They are heavy. But now he hears branches snapping, leaves crunching. He reaches for his rifle, and then he sees it. About 40 yards away, down in the gully, he sees what at first he thinks is a man. A big man, stooped over, walking awkwardly through the brush. But there's something off about him. The proportions, the way he's moving. This man grabs a tree, swings around it, and then dives behind some thick brush. Now, all this happens in just a few seconds, but the officer catches enough detail to realize that this isn't a man. He was covered in black or dark brown hair, soaked from the rain, and his head was oddly shaped, kind of long in the back, like he was wearing a balaclava or something like that. But the more the officer looked, the more it became clear that it wasn't clothing, that this was just part of the body. He said that it looked like this guy, this creature, this figure was like a bodybuilder. No fat, just pure, like bulging muscles, the kind you don't really see on people naturally. He could see individual muscle groups, massive shoulders, and no visible neck, or I guess maybe because it was so much muscle that it looked like, he was neckless.
Right.
Its arms were long, longer than a human's, and powerful looking. And what really struck the officer was it had hands, not paws like a bear or something, but actual hands, big, huge, human-like hands that gripped the tree and moved deliberately as it slipped into cover. I mean, I think I love that detail.
Yeah.
Because when you think about seeing something like a big bear standing on its hind legs and walking around, which they do sometimes.
Which kind of looks hilarious.
It does look hilarious. It looks like immediately you're like, circus.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean?
Especially like the babies, because my kids and I were just talking about this. There's a new show like The Americas. Have you watched it yet?
No, I haven't watched it yet, but
it's really good. But yeah, they like just the way their arms kind of like hang down is really funny.
Right. But just seeing those hands, I think, would be one of those like, woof, full body chills. Like, oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
So the officer said that the thing gave off this raspy coughing sound as it moved, like it had trouble breathing. Then it let out this long, hoarse, sad-sounding howl. The officer said, chilled him to the bone. And this is kind of when he has that click in his mind. This wasn't a person. It wasn't a lost hiker or a poacher. This wasn't a bear or a moose or a misidentified animal. It was something else, something that had scared off that bull moose earlier, and now it seemed as if this thing was stalking him.
Wow.
He said he stood there motionless for over an hour, waiting to see if the thing would come back, but it didn't. His fear, however, lingered. And even though he still had days left in his hunting trip, he refused to return to that spot. He said that that's the first time in 35 years I've ever been afraid in the bush. And here's another weird detail, dude, that I know you're going to love. And I can't remember if I brought this up on Patreon or a regular episode. Get this. He finds this large moose leg bone on the ground about 5 feet from his ATV, snapped, not cut. It looked, right there.
Yeah. Jeez,
and that reminds you of, remember when I saw that deer in my neighborhood?
Yeah. And one of a common thing that Bigfoot researchers will talk about is like these trees, you know, they'll be like huge. We're not talking like the dead ones that we used to walk around the forest and kick down, but like full on like trees where they like twist them and they like basically twist them apart. Which the amount of like strength to do that is bonkers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think I've seen some stuff online before where people, you know, will post something on Reddit like, hey man, what's this? You know, if they're hiking and they see areas where, like you said, trees are just knocked over.
Oh yeah.
In a weird way, you know, like a little too high for a human to like knock it over, and not just like, oh, a storm got it, or it's too top heavy.
When you were a kid, did you do that? Like,
no man, I didn't kick down trees, dude.
Oh yeah, man. Like,
you know, like old ones?
Yeah. It's like, they're like black, totally dead. You know, you kick a little too hard.
But you're practicing your karate on it and stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just hear the boom, boom.
Exactly.
Okay. All the stories so far have been about like a Bigfoot style creature, right? This one, dude, is, well, we're starting to get into the realm of, man, I wish it was a movie. I mean, and to be truthful, so far, the one in Louisiana, that scene is the one that really kind of sticks with me the most, where just now the officer kind of like points their light. They see this big beast sort of crouched behind this lady's house. This one is, well, it's amazing. Okay. So now we're going to go to Guadalupe, Nuevo Leon, Mexico. This time it's 2004. All right. This is an area just outside of Monterey, and we're in the early months of the year. And on this particular night, a 21-year-old police officer named Leonardo Samaniego Gallegos, I'm just crushing it, you know, is out patrolling alone. He's kind of driving his usual route along this street called Alamo Street in a neighborhood called Valles de la Silla. It's late. Streets are empty. It's the kind of quiet where, you know, your radio is the only sound breaking the silence. Until Gallegos sees something up ahead. At first, he thinks it's a person, a woman, standing near or in one of the trees, but then she starts to move. Not climb, not jump, but descend. This figure he described as a woman wearing a black cloak or gown, and she's literally descending from a nearby tree, dropping straight down toward his patrol car. And as she gets closer, Gallegos can see more details, and it's not helping. Her eyes are huge and totally black. They seem to have no pupils. Just big, dark orbs staring right at him. And she's still coming down, headed straight for the windshield of his vehicle. Terrified.
And she's just kind of like floating?
Floating, like descending, dude. Just coming straight for the windshield at this point. So he's terrified at this point. He floors the gas, and he's trying to get away. But this thing, it chases him. Not only chases him, but she closes the gap effortlessly. And then, in a moment right out of our worst nightmares, she collides with the windshield, slamming into it so hard that it actually bends inward. Whoa. Okay, now, just in case I didn't paint the picture well enough, let's just recap here. There's this cloaked, flying figure coming straight for him. He tries to, veer off and hit the gas. She matches that speed easily and then hits the patrol car with such force that the windshield bows inward.
Jeez, man.
Like she's trying to get in. Gallegos later said she started clawing at the glass with these long, sharp, pointy fingers or claws, raking at the windshield like she was trying to break through. And here is, and I don't know if this is the most terrifying part, but something that just, ugh. And that's when Gallegos blacks out. loses consciousness, dude.
Don't like that.
Now, when backup arrives, and yes, Gallegos did call for assistance before he passed out, the scene is absolute chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Other police officers reported seeing the same flying entity. One officer, George Contreras from nearby Santa Catarina, said that he and 2 other officers had seen the exact same figure, but just 3 days earlier. This woman-like shape flying unnaturally through the air, and all of them had just kind of stayed quiet about it until Gallegos' terrifying encounter went public.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another kicker, dude. It wasn't just the police. Some civilians began to come forward too. This woman named Norma Alicia Herrera, along with her brother, said that they saw the same flying being during the daytime, and it left her brother so disturbed that he was sick for a week. Even weirder, there's a local TV station that got their hands on video footage, dude, from another neighbor in the same area, and they had a clip showing what they believed was the same flying humanoid that they caught on camera days before the police encounters.
It kind of reminds me of, and it's a topic that we've never covered, but we definitely plan on, is like the black-eyed kids phenomenon.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Where it's like the goal of this topic is for them to like get in. It's like with the black-eyed kids, just for a brief like summary, is like typically these kids will show up at your door. There's always like at least like 2 to 3 to 4, and like they have jet black eyes. They usually have like their, if they're wearing like hoodies or whatever, very sort of nondescript clothes, and they usually try to like cover their face so you can't see their eyes because they just have jet black eyes. But it's always these kids, and it has that Tim Marchenko kind of vibe of like, oh, we need to use your telephone. We can't find our parents. Let us in. It's like that sort of the vampire, like you have to invite me in. And so sort of the bending, like the windshield, like trying to get in, like that's creepy, man.
Yeah, dude. Very, very creeper. Very, very creepy.
And so he got like super sick or whatever.
Well, he passed out. Okay. And then after other police units arrived, this ambulance also arrives. And then, he wasn't injured, perhaps maybe because he never really abandoned the vehicle. If maybe he would have opened the door and run out, maybe that creature would have got him, presumably. Mm-hmm. So he regains consciousness, and he's attended by these paramedics in the ambulance. And then I guess a TV camera crew arrives, and they interview him. And I've actually got pictures of the video, interview. I mean, it's a real thing. And you should see his face expressions. Hold on, I'm going to flip my phone over and show you. Look at this guy, man.
Oh, yeah. He's seen some shit, as they say.
Yeah. An extensive search was done around the area later by police units and stuff, trying to find any kind of evidence, any tracks or anything like that. But they didn't find anything. Now, some other details that he provided later, he described the creature as wearing some kind of helmet or headpiece with a pointed shape that curved downward at the back of the head, almost like like a bizarre alien headdress mixed between a medieval knight and the Grim Reaper.
Interesting.
And that, the first thought that came to mind there with like a pointed sort of helmet was, kind of reminds me of Flatwoods.
Yeah, man, that's pretty creepy.
That's a wild one, right?
Yeah, I love that. So, well, I guess he just of course he doesn't know what happened because he passed out, man.
Yeah, and I mean they tested him for drugs. They did psych evaluations. He passed everything. No drugs, no toxic substances of any kind, no alcohol, nothing.
Wow.
He was determined to be, psychologically sound and fine. And then again, to reiterate, other officers had seen the thing 3 days earlier. Other civilians had seen it. I don't know. That's just that's wild. And it's again, for some reason, it makes it even more fascinating that it was 2004.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because it's sort of, I mean, hell, 2004 seems like yesterday, but it seems like, oh, well, this is something that we can relate to because it's in our
lifetime.
Time. Yeah.
Our time down here.
This is our time.
All right. So another quick one before we take another break. This one, Mexico City, 1976. All right. So it's January 1976, somewhere in Mexico City. There are these two police officers, Arturo Padilla and Herman Galavan. And again, they're on patrol. Now, to their credit, these guys knew full well that what they were about to report could get them mocked, laughed at, or worse, like we've described, fired or discredited.
Yeah.
But they decided to go public anyway. Because what they saw that night wasn't just strange, it was terrifying. They're driving along a road when, out of nowhere, this massive flying creature swoops right over their patrol car. It's so low and so fast that it completely buzzed them. In other words, they could, you know what I mean? Feel that air. Yeah. And this wasn't a bird, it wasn't a plane, and it definitely wasn't an owl.
What is it called? Like buzzing the tower?
Yeah. And so again, just in case anybody, I said it's not a bird, it's not a plane, not an owl. It's 1976, it's not a drone either.
Yeah.
Here's how Padilla described it. He said, it must have had an enormous wingspan, for its shadow covered both lanes of the road. And that's not even the scariest part. He goes on to say that when it made its first pass, he thought it was maybe a small plane trying to crash land. Said it with a Mexican accent, didn't mean to.
Going to crash land.
He said that he thought it was maybe a small plane trying to crash land. But then the thing circled around and made another pass. At that point, they stop the patrol car. They get out to try and make sense of what the heck they're seeing. Maybe it is some kind of bird, they probably thought. But then that's when they get the better look of it. And they confirm it's not a plane. And yeah, technically, I guess you could call a bird, but not like any bird that they know or we know. They said that this thing had a man-like body, enormous wings, and described as being grayish or white in color. This giant flying humanoid. Not really some majestic angel figure, but more like a living nightmare. This winged beast that was very aware of their presence and completely unbothered by it.
And you said this is New Mexico?
It is Mexico.
Or Mexico, yeah. So one of the things that Mexico is like really known for, and kind of throughout like South American stuff, is
the señoritas.
Well, that and the flying humanoid thing, to where I think there's actually more sightings of flying humanoids than there is of like crafts.
Wow.
And there's a lot of it. I mean, there's been videos, since the 90s, but it is weird. It's like you'll see what looks straight up like, I mean, it's different from this one, but like it'll look straight up like a witch on a broom, or like
it's almost like the other one too,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it being white though.
Yeah, no, or like grayish. Let's just say lighter in color, because you know how it is. We've, I think, talked about this too. That phenomenon when multiple people can witness the same thing, but their descriptions are slightly altered. It's kind of like the game of telephone.
Right.
You're trying to go back in your memory, and anytime something sort of somewhat traumatic happens, it's kind of weird. Your adrenaline is peaked, and there are certain details you can remember perfectly, but then there's others that elude you.
Right.
And then there's that thing too. I think when we talk about this kind of stuff, I always ask, like, do you remember what your wife wore 2 days ago?
Yeah.
Like if she went missing and be like, I have no idea. If you ask me what my wife found, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And does that make me a bad husband? Maybe. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Okay. So now, after swooping over these officers multiple times, this creature eventually fades away into the night sky. No crash, no sound, no trace. It's one of those encounters where nothing is really resolved here. There's no communication, no damage, just this quiet assertion of presence. Like this thing was saying, I'm here, I see you, you can't touch me. And then it was gone.
Yeah.
Just wild, man.
Yeah, it's those ones that are, they're kind of frustrating because there's so little like to it. It's like, you can't, I mean, it's kind of the reason that we love all this stuff is that sort of unexplained nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it also could be like a little frustrating if you're the one
that it's happening to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like experiencing these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that's part of the reason why I love that one as well, is just that there's not a whole lot that happens. Just this, I mean, I say that, and then I feel like I sound silly saying not a whole lot happens. There's a flying humanoid.
Right.
That's making multiple passes above them, you know?
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of like the, like Mothman or that kind of thing, which is cool. What did he say? Like did he specify like the face at all or anything? Or
no.
It's just, I mean, I guess it could have been, he was more focused on like just the overall.
Yeah, and I guess maybe
shape.
It was just like flying overhead so quickly. Because, I mean, they didn't really mention anything about like, did it have talons? Did it have feathers versus fur? You know, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And then it could have just been like a giant marsh bird. I mean, one of those suckers flew over my head when I was cycling out in South Carolina one time. And I felt about the same way that this guy did, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it freaked me out big time. And it wasn't even that close to me, really, when it swooped down.
One of the things that when you said, like, it could just be like a big bird, that is a thing that a lot of the sort of debunkers of the age would claim that Mothman was. They said it was like I think it's like a sandhill crane.
Crane, yeah.
And they do get pretty massive. But, again, like, you're going to notice like the little spindly, stick-thin legs.
Right.
You know, especially if you're a cop, I just think that, you know, it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah. You're not just going to jump to, and plus they pulled over to the side of the road, got out of the vehicle, and then observed this thing multiple times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Let's take another break. When we get back, I've got some more of these stories that, I mean, they're just going to keep you on the edge of your seat. This is just wild stuff.
Yeah, man.
We will return after these messages.
There's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no dead.
Hey, this is Woody.
And this is Tyler. And you're listening to That Would Be Rad.
And now, back to our show. Okay, folks, this one takes us to Amarillo, Texas, 1970. Again, we're getting those Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes, but I can't, go without saying that the reason I know Amarillo so well is by the song Amarillo by Morning by none other than George Strait.
Good song.
Who, if you're from Texas at all, he's basically...
he's king.
The best of the best, Nolan Ryan and George Strait, that was my childhood. Okay.
And they're kind of the same dude in a way.
Yeah, I mean, they're similar, yeah. Let me set the scene here. A family moves into a ranch-style house way out in the middle of nowhere. Surrounded by sand dunes, scrubland, and not much else. Now, this part of Texas is a lot more arid and dry. It's isolated, quiet. Again, the perfect place for anyone looking to escape the world. At first, everything's fine. But then, things begin to take a left into Weird Town. One day, the grandmother of the family finds what looks like a den of wolf cubs near the house. Excited, she brings her husband out the next day to show him, but when they get there, the adult wolves are dead, torn apart, and the cubs are completely gone. And not in a predator got him kind of way. These carcasses were ripped apart by something big, something with formidable claws. So the family gets uneasy, and rightly so. And that night, the grandfather, he has this vivid nightmare. Maybe even a premonition. Because he wakes up in a cold sweat, convinced that there's something terribly wrong. He steps outside, heading for the outhouse, and that's when he sees it. A massive, hulking humanoid figure with glowing red eyes, just standing in the dark, watching the house.
Wow.
And he's not the only one who felt this. Back at his brother's place, the great-grandmother, unprompted, had a bad feeling and sends her son Ray to check on them. Ray packs up his wife and kids and drives out to this house. Now, he's almost there when the car overheats. It needs water. He remembers that there's a well nearby and he heads out to get some. And then it steps in front of him. The same red-eyed creature right there in the path. Now Ray, just like any good Texan, sprints back to the car, tells his family to run for the house, and grabs a shotgun and his Bowie knife. He's gonna hold it off, he tells them, and give them time to get away. Hey man, I'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
This is where my bravery kicks in. This is the area where I would be brave.
Yeah, right.
He puts the car between himself and this thing, and the creature charges. Ray fires, point blank, multiple times, to no effect. He tries to stab it, misses.
What? So he's getting close. He's in there.
Barely dodges a swipe from this thing's claws, and then he just starts booking it towards the house. And this thing chases him. But then, oddly, it stops at the edge of a hill, as if there's some invisible boundary that it will not cross. By now, the whole family's awake. The women and kids pile into the bed of a truck, hiding under blankets and stuff to create some kind of makeshift barrier. The men pack into the cab with weapons, trying to keep an eye on the monster, which is just watching them. I mean, this is truly the perfect scene out of a movie.
Yeah.
The tension is just ratcheting up. Luckily for them, the truck starts. They drive off, slowly at first, praying that it doesn't jump in, and the creature stays put. Until suddenly, it leaps off the hill and starts chasing them. But again, it stops, just short of a strange, almost invisible line where the sand ends and the grass begins.
Man.
So, the next day, the family returns with a few people to collect their stuff. But when they get there, the ranch, this is where Tyler's going to love this part of the story. The ranch is crawling with police and military-looking personnel.
There you go.
The entire first floor of the house is completely trashed, like something had just torn right through it. Now, here's where the story really starts to jump off the rails. They bring in a canine unit. The dogs pick up a scent and start barking at the attic door. The officers open it up and send the dogs in. And almost immediately, they hear fighting.
And then they die.
Then, one by one, those dogs are thrown out of the attic window. Their bodies skinned alive.
Well,
the two officers rush in. Gunfire erupts. Then, one of the officers gets launched out of the same window, dead before he hits the ground.
This has got to be like a creepy.
Dude, it's from 1970, man.
Whoa.
The remaining people outside look up to see this creature, this huge, bald, blue-skinned humanoid with sharp claws and those same glowing red eyes staring down at them from the attic window. That's when this ranking military officer gives the order, destroy it, and everyone opens fire on the house. Two guys toss grenades in, they torch the place, full-on incineration, and only one body is found when the fire is out, and it's not the creature, it's the other officer who went inside. On top of it all, footprints were discovered leading away from the ruins, but no trace of the creature, no further reports, just a scorched house, a dead cop, and a story that no one ever talked about again.
What? I mean...
So again, this is Amarillo, Texas, 1970.
Okay, my first thought is this is a well-crafted action scene story. However, we like to suspend our disbelief on this show. And if we're looking at it as like, okay, this stuff totally happened, from the description, glowing red eyes, shooting at it point blank range. For some reason, the thought of like a djinn kind of popped up. Like it kind of took me away from like the Bigfoot kind of thing, where, which I mean, I know that you and I both sort of, we do have leanings of like a possible interdimensionality aspect tied in with like Bigfoot. So I mean, it could be that, but usually like the glowing red eyes isn't a thing, but it is a thing in.
See, but they talk about the glowing red eyes, and like there is a Bigfoot encounter that I'm thinking of, or maybe it's like a wolf man or a dog man. Encounter.
I think. I mean, usually you'll see like they do always talk about eye shine, but the glowing red eyes. I mean, honestly, what's funny is like to me, it takes me into like Nephilim, the shining ones, like
especially because it's like bald, blue-skinned humanoid, sharp claws, glowing red eyes. And here's the thing: so this story.
So wait, so it just says like fully blue skin, no hair or anything.
Yeah,
and it's just totally nude.
Well, I don't know if it's nude. I don't know. It just says
fully nude,
huge, bald, blue-skinned humanoid, sharp claws, glowing red eyes. Now, this story is found in the Humanoid Encounters 19 series. It's a series of books written by Albert S. Rosales. Yeah, there's like a series of books. He does some from like 1955 through 1959, 1960, 1964, 65 through 69, and that kind of thing. So that's where the story comes from. But he has chronicled, tons and tons of encounters. And this is one of them.
Man, that's really cool.
And it does sound just like something straight out of a movie.
I mean, like throwing a grenade in there.
Yeah, I mean, just 80s as it comes, man.
Yeah, it really is 80s.
It's like, who rolled up in this thing, man? MacGyver?
Well, and then also like throwing the dogs out.
Bum, 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 bum.
I was just listening to a thing where they were trashing MacGyver and saying that like none of the episodes hold up. And it made me kind of want to go back and watch.
Here's the thing.
Oh, no.
Me and Woodrow watched like the pilot episode.
That's hard.
Not too long ago. And yeah, it's cheesy, but it's also awesome. Okay,
yeah.
Get out of town.
I mean, the pilots are always typically not. They haven't got their footing. They're not. But man, I used to love that show.
Me too, man. So cool.
So cool.
Okay. You ready for another one?
Yeah, dude. I'm still stuck on this like blue skin though. I feel like they were so descriptive on all these other things, and it's like, no, tell me more about whatever this thing is.
Well, they start, dude. But man, somebody just flew out of a window. 2 dogs were skinned alive.
Skinned alive.
They're just like, hey man, we're throwing grenades in. They didn't have a chance to really see if
that's true.
What kind of clothes? What was his outfit of the day?
Yeah, but I mean, you can say it's like, okay, is it like sort of like smooth?
Maybe they just saw his face, man. I don't know. And it kind of reminds me of what's the vampire movie?
Nosferatu.
No, I haven't seen that. Salem's Lot,
which is basically based on Nosferatu. I haven't seen the new Nosferatu, but
me neither. I think I'm gonna watch it sometime this week. Okay,
it's really scary. Actually, the new one's on. Is it like Paramount or
no? It's on
Peacock.
Peacock, but I don't have Peacock, baby. Okay, don't get me sidetracked, man. This one's actually kind of closer to our neck of the woods, and we're kind of going to take a step into some urban legend territory, but not just any legend. This one is rooted in multiple sightings that kind of spanned across many decades, including one brush with police. And this is the story of the Third Eye Man. It all starts in Columbia, South Carolina, right beneath the campus of the University of South Carolina.
Which we've literally played right there.
Yep. Now, like a lot of old universities, USC has a maze of underground service tunnels, some of which date back to the 1800s. You've got heating lines, utility access, maintenance corridors, and allegedly something else. Now, the first documented sighting goes back to November of 1949. A student named Christopher Nichols is walking near Longstreet Theater when suddenly he sees a man step out of the shadows wearing a silver suit.
Oh, God, I love it already.
Nicholas watches as the figure calmly lifts a manhole cover, climbs down into the tunnel below, and vanishes. Naturally, the school newspaper, the Gamecock, picks up the story. And just in case you're not from the States and or don't know... No, I'm saying... No. The Carolina Gamecocks, that's their mascot, okay? It's a chicken.
Sure, pal. I'm kidding.
Sure, pal. All right. So the newspaper picks up the story, giving the figure the now iconic name, the Sewer Man. But it doesn't stop there. Fast forward to April of 1950. A campus police officer is patrolling the same general area when he stumbles across something disturbing. A pile of mutilated chickens. Bloodied, torn up like something had been eating them. Well, he shines his flashlight around and spots something in the darkness. It's a hunched figure lurking in the shadows, decked out in a silver suit. He describes it having gray skin and a grotesque appearance. He's looking at something that's not just strange, but wrong. But the detail that really kind of cements it into legend is that the officer reports that the creature had a third eye positioned right in the center of its forehead. Not metaphorical, not symbolic, but actually a literal third eye staring back at him. And when their eyes met, the creature sort of scowled and then bolted back down into the tunnels, leaving the pile of dismembered chickens behind. The legend doesn't stop in the 1950s either. In the 60s and 70s, sightings still continued. There's one account, possibly the most terrifying, where a group of university fraternity members were exploring the tunnels because of, of course, that's what you do.
Oh, yeah.
After a couple of pints of liquid courage. And suddenly, the third eye man appears, and he charges at them. He swings this lead pipe like he's meant to do, like he's trying to do some serious damage. And the group kind of scatters. No one's seriously hurt, but the encounter was so violent that the university decided to seal off most of the tunnel entrances. Now, to this day, most of those tunnels are inaccessible to the public. Although, rumor has it that a few ways in still exist. And if you're reckless or brave enough to go looking, then you might find it. Now, despite all these sightings, despite students, police, local citizens coming forward, there hasn't been any hard evidence, no photos, no video, just reports. Just this fear and this mystery. So maybe it's just an urban legend, maybe, but maybe, just maybe, there's still something living beneath that campus, watching, waiting, peeking out with that third eye.
Man, that's
crazy.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
now
cool.
My university up in North Georgia, there were all kinds of rumors about tunnels that went underneath the drill field, and
I believe it
because it's a military land grant college from the 1800s, and
well, they're called DUMBs, deep underground military bases, and I think there's way more than we could ever know.
Totes. All right, one more before we go, and this one, I mean, if it doesn't remind you of Ghostbusters 2, I don't know what will. Okay, this one is from the city of brotherly love, otherwise known as Philadelphia, 1950. Okay? There's something about Philadelphia that I'll never forget, and that's when we went to see the Liberty Bell in real life.
Oh, dude. Have we told the story?
Of course. We're going to tell it again.
Okay.
Because, here we are. We're in this city, so much history. Rocky Balboa.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We ran up the steps ourselves. We did the whole thing. Yeah. It was incredible. Okay. We were like, man, we got to see the Liberty Bell. I mean, we're in a rock band, but this is an important piece of history.
Oh, yeah. We're patriots.
Yeah. And apparently, it is a signal for, aliens or something. Okay. So anyways, we're standing around this Liberty Bell, and there's this like elementary school class field trip.
Well, they were little.
Little, dude. They were probably like kindergarten or first grade.
Probably first grade, yeah.
First grade, okay.
Yeah.
And you hear this little Philadelphian kid. You don't hear anything else.
Yeah.
You just hear them say, "They gots to be gay. Look at they outfits." And we're just kind of like, oh, okay.
Well,
welcome to Philly.
The funny thing too is when I hear it, I look over and I see this like little black kid with like shaved head, and he's facing away from us. So I just see the back of his head, and he's like, but then he's like pointing over his shoulder, like, they gotta be gay. Look at the outfit.
Yeah, and man,
like telling his
all
friends.
those kids. Yeah, and like all those kids look like they stepped straight out of an 80s movie and just tough as nails first graders. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah, they all ride the subway,
Yeah. On their own.
Yeah.
Pack their lunch and roll it up in their sleeve or something. Yeah. Okay. So, Philadelphia, September 1950. In fact, this event, this thing that happened, actually inspired a movie that came out in 1958. It was actually based loosely, but based on this, okay? The movie, you've probably heard of it. It's called The Blob.
Yeah.
Every one of you watching this screen, look out. Because soon, very soon, the most horrifying monster menace ever conceived will be oozing into this theater.
Okay, here's how it went down. It's late at night.
Wait a minute. I think I've mentioned
this. This is true, dude.
I think I've talked about
You've never mentioned this. You never mentioned
No. We talked about the Blob, how it was inspired by this blob.
Yeah, no, probably so.
It didn't matter.
We never talked about this. It's late at night. 2 veteran police officers, Joe Keenan and John Collins, are out on patrol, just like all the rest of them were.
Yeah.
Everything's quiet, and that's how it all starts. Streets are still. They turn a corner, and bam. They see something in the road. And it's just sitting there, this giant, glowing, quivering mass that's slowly oozing across the street. And no, I'm not being dramatic. That's literally how they reported it.
Yeah.
A purple, jelly-like substance, roughly 6 feet across and 1 foot thick, pulsating and vibrating and giving off this faint, luminescent glow. Not blinding or anything, just enough to light up under the moonlight.
Yeah.
Having a stroke.
Under the moon.
Jesus. And okay, they stop the car, step out. I'm probably expecting a tarp or a weird chemical spill, but maybe even some kind of animal remains. But the closer they get, the stranger it becomes. When they hit it with their flashlights, it kind of glitters, almost like it's made of wet crystal or it's reflecting light from inside itself. And then when they turn the flashlights off, the daggum thing keeps glowing. Like bioluminescent, like something that should be deep in the ocean.
Right.
And not only does it move, but it seems to do so with intent. It has kind of a lip, like a thick edge that flops forward, allowing it to slowly crawl or ooze along the pavement, heading towards this nearby field. Now, at this point, Keenan and Collins call for backup. 2 more officers show up. Officer James Cooper and Sergeant Joe Cook. And now you've got all 4 cops all gathered around this glowing blob, trying to figure out what in the actual heck they're dealing with. Like any rational, slightly curious, maybe too curious group of humans, they try to pick it up.
Yeah.
Oops a daisies, bad idea. As soon as they try to lift it, the thing starts to dissolve, just kind of melts in their hands, leaving behind a greasy, odorless scum on their skin like residue from another dimension.
Ooh.
Then, and this is where it actually basically hits the X-Files status here, the entire blob just evaporates.
Yep.
Disappears right in front of them. 1 minute it's there, glowing, moving, reacting. The next minute, gone.
I mean, it's very reminiscent of the star jelly.
Yep. Because here's the thing that sucks is none of the officers, nobody, not the department, no later investigators, at that time, they didn't think to try to collect a sample. This is no test tube worth, no scraps, nothing. All that we have left is their report.
Well, one of the things we do know, if it is related to, like, in the star jelly sort of camp, is it. Even if you would have gotten a sample, it would have just completely evaporated later anyway. So
sure, and so it's like, is this that stuff? Was it some sort of biological creature? The fact that it was moving, that's the thing. If it was just sitting there, they touched it, and then it just kind of like dissipates or does something weird.
Yeah,
that's one thing that would be weird enough. But the fact that it's actually moving,
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and it was like kind of like quivering, I guess. Kind of like sort of shaking like jello.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's bizarre, man. And there you have it, folks.
Yeah.
From luminous blobs on city streets to 8-foot beasts running through Louisiana swamps and hiding behind, poor ladies' houses, to silver-suited creatures crawling underneath a university in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And, of course, flying cloaked figures smashing into police windshields. These are some of the strangest, most craziest encounters ever reported by police officers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like we've said time and time again throughout last week's episode and this week too, it's like these are trained observers, people whose job is literally to assess danger, to stay calm in these crazy situations under pressure, and then in those trainings to observe and report all the details they see.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what I think makes it the most sort of chilling to me, is to hear these accounts from these folks and to think they had to see something. In so many of these cases, it was more than one person, It's just bizarre, man. But I love it because it just instantly gives me that vibe. Even the ones that were in 2004, I still imagine them being late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. Although the Blob one's like 50, so that's like even,
yeah.
That's going back even further. Yeah, dude, I love this stuff. There's just a and we've mentioned it numerous times, especially on the last episode, but there's just something like, it just feels a little more like legitimate about these cases, because it is like, police officers and, and like the military, there's like a training involved that requires like a higher level of like observation and sort of, spatial awareness as a cop, because you really are like in the line of fire. You never know what's going to happen. You
never know what detail is going to be important to solve whatever is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love these stories, and I hope you did too. If you would like to tell your own story, you can do so over on our Instagram. Drop us a line in the comments. Shoot us a DM. If it's more long form, shoot it to thatwouldberadpod@gmail.com. Leave a 5-star review over on Spotify or whatever podcatcher you listen on. If you'd like to give your own story and hear it on a possible future episode in your own voice with some really cool sound design and all the bells and whistles, you can do so by leaving a little voice memo over at thatwouldberadpodcast.com. We actually have a few of those kind of stacking up, so hopefully soon we'll probably have an episode where maybe you'll hear your own story. Tell a friend about the podcast. If you want to support us, probably the best possible way to support us is our Patreon, the Rabbit Trail. It's more of what you love, and there's extra episodes per month, and it's kind of, if you just want a little more, that would be rad. It's the best way to do it, and it really helps keep the lights on and keep the train on the tracks. You got anything else, Woody?
Man, I think that's about it. Other than I did want to say thank you to all the men and women that protect and serve.
I think a lot of times they get a bad rap, but sorry, I just took a sip of Red Bull. I think a lot of times the police get a bad rap, and that sucks because there's always good and bad apples in every, line of work and organization and all that. And, but I think for the most part, it's a tough job that I don't think that they get enough credit for. And so, yeah, big ups to the police. We love you. We appreciate you. And as always,
be rad.
That's the way it goes. Clouds in a time where I just needed some sunshine. You were already dead before you became a ghost. You always said our future would be a parade of flowers, but now all that's left is a single rose. That's the way it goes.
Access granted.
They round the edge of the house, and that's when they see it. There's something. Oh my God, dude!
I could tell by the sound.
Hey man, I need you to call 911. I'm having a heart attack.
You're gonna have another one whenever you're editing.
Good God. Okay.
Because it's pretty huge.
Shh.